The rain battered the windows of our San Francisco apartment, a relentless drumbeat that drowned out the world. I stood frozen in the bathroom, staring at the pregnancy test in my hand, its two pink lines screaming a truth I wasn't ready to face. How could a single night, blurred by whiskey and laughter, rewrite my entire life? I'm Ethan Carter, a 28-year-old graphic designer with a penchant for late-night jazz and impulsive decisions. My roommate, Lucas Bennett, is the opposite steady, pragmatic nurse who keeps our chaotic apartment grounded. We've been friends since college, sharing everything from pizza to existential crises. But never that. Not until 6 weeks ago, when a drunken night at a dive bar spiraled into something neither of us could explain. It started innocently enough. Lucas had just broken up with his boyfriend, Mark, a pretentious lawyer who never deserved him. I was nursing my own wounds after a string of failed dates, each one reminding me I was better off alone. We ended up at the Rusty Anchor, a dimly lit bar with sticky floors and a jukebox that played Sinatra on repeat. The whiskey flowed, and so did our laughter, our stories, our hands brushing as we reached for the same glass. Somewhere between the third round and a slurred rendition of Fly Me to the Moon, the lines blurred. We stumbled home, lips crashing, clothes discarded, a reckless collision of need and loneliness. The next morning, we didn't talk about it. Lucas made coffee. I sketched in silence, and we buried the night under a pile of unspoken agreements. Life moved on. Work, bills, the usual grind until those two pink lines shattered everything. I'm trans, and while I'd always known pregnancy was a possibility, it felt like a distant theory, not a reality staring me in the face. I hadn't been with anyone else, not since that night. The math was undeniable, but the courage to tell Lucas, non-existent. I hid the test in my sock drawer, as if concealing it could erase the truth. But secrets have a way of clawing their way out. Lucas noticed my unease, the way I flinched when he asked if I was okay, the way I stopped joining him for our nightly Netflix marathons. "Ethan, you're acting weird," he said one evening, his blue eyes narrowing as he chopped vegetables for dinner. "What's going on?" "Nothing," I lied, stirring my tea until it went cold. I wanted to tell him, to spill the chaos in my head, but fear glued my tongue to the roof of my mouth. What if he laughed? What if he left? What if that night, which I'd secretly replayed in my mind 1,000 times, meant nothing to him? Weeks passed, and my body started betraying me. Morning sickness hit like a freight train, and I couldn't hide the exhaustion. Lucas, ever the nurse, noticed the signs. One night, as we sat on our worn-out couch, he turned off the TV and faced me. "Ethan, you're sick. I'm taking you to a doctor tomorrow." No arguments. "I'm not sick," I snapped, sharper than I meant. His brow furrowed, and I saw the hurt flicker in his eyes. Guilt twisted in my gut. I couldn't keep this from him anymore, not when the truth was growing inside me. "Lucas, I need to tell you something," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The room felt too small, the air too thick. "I'm pregnant." His jaw dropped, and for a moment, he just stared, processing. Then, slowly, his gaze softened, and he reached for my hand. "Okay," he said, his voice steady despite the shock. "We'll figure this out. Together." But he didn't know the half of it. Not yet. The next few days were a blur of doctor's appointments and awkward silences. Lucas was supportive, asking questions, researching prenatal care. But I could see the gears turning in his head. He hadn't asked the obvious question, and I hadn't volunteered the answer. How do you tell your best friend that the baby you're carrying is his? That one night of blurred boundaries had consequences neither of us saw coming. We sat in the waiting room of a clinic in the Mission District, surrounded by pastel posters about healthy pregnancies. Lucas flipped through a magazine, pretending to read, while I stared at my hands, rehearsing the words I couldn't say. The ultrasound tech called my name, and Lucas stood to follow me. "You don't have to," I said, but he shook his head. "I'm not letting you do this alone," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. My heart ached at his kindness, but it also terrified me. What would happen when he knew the truth? The ultrasound was surreal, a grainy image of a tiny heartbeat flickering on the screen. I felt a rush of awe and fear, a love I didn't expect for something so small, so new. Lucas stared at the monitor, his expression unreadable. "That's incredible," he whispered, and I wondered if he felt it too, the weight of something bigger than us. That night, back at the apartment, I couldn't avoid it anymore. Lucas was washing dishes, his sleeves rolled up, humming softly to himself. I stood in the doorway, clutching the ultrasound photo. "Lucas," I said, my voice shaking, "there's something else." He turned, drying his hands, his eyes searching mine. "What is it?" I handed him the photo, my heart pounding. "The baby, it's yours." The silence that followed was deafening. His face went pale, then flushed, a storm of emotions flickering across its hock. Confusion, something deeper I couldn't name. "Mine," he said, his voice barely audible. "That night." I nodded, tears burning my eyes. "I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to ruin what we have." He set the photo down, running a hand through his blonde hair. "Ethan, this doesn't ruin anything. It complicates things. Sure. But ruin? No." He stepped closer, his hand hovering near mine before pulling back. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I was scared," I admitted. "Scared you'd freak out. Scared you'd leave." "Leave?" He laughed, a sharp, incredulous sound. "Ethan, you're my best friend. You're more than that, even if we never said it. I'm not going anywhere." His words hit me like a tidal wave, stirring feelings I'd buried since that night. But before I could respond, he asked, "What do you want to do?" "About the baby. About us." I didn't have an answer. Not yet. The question hung between us like fog over the bay, thick and impossible to navigate. Lucas's eyes held mine, steady but searching, and I felt the weight of every choice I hadn't made. I wanted to tell him I loved him, that the night we'd shared wasn't just a mistake, but a spark I couldn't extinguish. But love was a risk, and with a baby in the equation, the stakes felt impossibly high. Over the next few weeks, we fell into a strange rhythm. Lucas took on the role of caretaker, making sure I ate, dragging me to prenatal classes, even buying a book called What to Expect When You're Expecting. I teased him about it, but his dedication made my heart ache. He was all in, but I couldn't shake the fear that he was doing this out of duty, not desire. One evening, as we walked through Golden Gate Park, the air crisp with autumn, I finally asked, "Lucas, why are you doing this? All of the appointments, the research. Is it just because you feel responsible?" He stopped by a cluster of eucalyptus trees, their scent sharp and grounding. "Ethan, it's not just responsibility. It's you. It's always been you." His voice cracked, and he looked away, toward the setting sun. "That night, it wasn't just the whiskey. I felt something for you for years. I just didn't know how to say it." My breath caught. I'd spent so long convincing myself that night was a fluke, a fleeting lapse in judgment. But here he was, rewriting the story I'd told myself. "Then why didn't you say anything?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "Because I was scared too. he admitted. Scared of ruining what we had. Scared you didn't feel the same. And then Mark came along. And I thought, maybe I'd missed my chance. The confession hung between us. Raw and fragile. I wanted to reach for him. To close the distance. But fear held me back. What if we tried and failed? What if love wasn't enough to carry us through the chaos of a child? A life neither of us had planned. As the weeks turned into months, my body changed. And so did our dynamic. Lucas was there for every milestone: the first kick, the second ultrasound, the moment I realized I wanted to keep this baby, no matter how terrifying it felt. But there was a tension between us. An unspoken question: were we building a family? Or just surviving a situation? The outside world didn't make it easier. My parents, conservative and distant, didn't take the news well. You're throwing your life away, my mom said over a tense Zoom call, her voice sharp with disappointment. Lucas, overhearing, squeezed my hand under the table, his silent support louder than her words. At work, colleagues whispered, their curiosity veiled as concern. San Francisco was progressive, but judgment still lingered in sidelong glances and hushed tones. One night, after a particularly rough day, Lucas suggested we get out of the city. Let's go to Napa, he said, tossing me his car keys. Just for a day? Clear our heads. The drive was quiet, the rolling vineyards a stark contrast to the noise in my mind. We stopped at a small winery, sipping sparkling water instead of wine. And for a moment, it felt like we were just Ethan and Lucas again, two friends stealing a moment from the world. As we sat on a hill overlooking the valley, Lucas turned to me, his face soft in the fading light. Ethan, I need you to know something, he said, his voice low. I'm not just here for the baby. I'm here for you. I want the Seuss if you'll have me. My heart pounded, a mix of fear and hope. Lucas, I want that too. But what if we mess this up? What if we're not ready? He smiled. A quiet, determined thing. Nobody's ever ready. But we've got each other. That's enough, isn't it? I leaned into him, my head resting on his shoulder. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. But the world has a way of testing promises. And ours was about to face its first real challenge. The Napa trip marked a shift. Lucas and I were no longer just roommates or Francois, were something undefined. Teetering on the edge of love, but too cautious to name it. We held hands in private, stole glances over breakfast. But the weight of the baby and the uncertainty of our future kept us from diving in fully. I wanted to believe in us. But doubt is a stubborn thing. Back in San Francisco, life threw us a curveball. Mark, Lucas's ex, showed up at our apartment unannounced. His polished shoes and smug grin a stark contrast to our cluttered living room. Heard you're playing house now, he said, his eyes flicking to my growing belly. Didn't think you had it in you. Lucas. Lucas's jaw tightened. What do you want? Mark. Just checking in, he said, leaning against the doorframe. Heard about the baby. Thought maybe you'd need a reminder of what you're giving up. The words stung, not because I believed Mark, but because they echoed my own fears. Was Lucas giving up too much for me? For a life he hadn't chosen? I excused myself to the kitchen, pretending to need water. But really, I needed to escape the suffocating tension. After Mark left, Lucas found me sitting on the fire escape, staring at the city lights. Don't listen to him, he said, sitting beside me. He's just trying to get under my skin. Is he wrong, though? I asked, my voice small. This is a lot. Lucas. A baby. Us. Maybe you're signing up for something you'll regret. He took my hand, his grip firm. The only thing I'd regret is letting you go through this alone. I choose you, Ethan. Every day, His words were a lifeline, but the doubts lingered. As my due date approached, the practicalities of our situation loomed larger. We needed a bigger place, more money, a plan. Lucas took extra shifts at the hospital, his exhaustion evident in the dark circles under his eyes. I tried to keep up with freelance work, but pregnancy drained me, and the stress of our undefined relationship didn't help. One night, I woke to find Lucas asleep on the couch, a baby named book open on his chest. I watched him, his face soft in sleep, and felt a surge of love so intense it scared me. I wanted to build a life with him, but the fear of failure, of hurting him, of not being enough kept me guarded. The turning point came at a prenatal class. The instructor, a cheerful woman named Clara, asked us to share our hopes for the baby. Lucas went first, his voice steady. I want our kid to grow up knowing they're loved, no matter who they are or what they choose. I want them to see that family isn't just blood, it's the people who show up every day. His words hit me hard. He wasn't just talking about the baby. He was talking about us, about choosing each other, despite the mess, despite the fear. When it was my turn, I could barely speak. I want them to know they were wanted, I said, my voice breaking, and that they brought us together. Lucas reached for my hand, and this time, I didn't pull away. That night, we really talked for the first time in months. About our fears, our hopes, the love we'd both been too scared to name. I love you, Ethan, he said, his voice raw. I've loved you for years. This baby, they're not a mistake. They're a chance. Tears streamed down my face as I kissed him, the weight of months of fear lifting, if only for a moment. But life doesn't let you linger in moments of clarity. The next morning, I woke to a sharp pain, a contraction that stole my breath. It was weeks too early. Panic seized me as Lucas grabbed our hospital bag, his calm voice a stark contrast to the chaos in my head. At the hospital, the hours blurred pain, fear, Lucas's hand in mine. Our baby, a boy, was born at 3:17 a.m. Tiny but fierce, his cries echoing through the sterile room. We named him Noah, after the promise of new beginnings. But as I held him, fragile and perfect, I saw Lucas's eyes, those same blue eyes staring back at me. And I knew the hardest conversation was still to come. Noah was a miracle, but he was also a question mark. As we brought him home to our cramped apartment, the reality of parenthood settled in sleepless nights, endless diapers, and a love so fierce it rearranged my soul. Lucas was a natural, cradling Noah with a tenderness that made my heart ache. But every time I looked at our son, I saw Lucas's eyes, his nose, the shape of his tiny mouth. The truth I'd carried for months was now undeniable, and Lucas was starting to see it too. One evening, as Noah slept in his crib, Lucas sat me down on the couch. "Ethan," he said, his voice gentle but firm, "we need to talk about Noah. He looks like me. A lot like me." I froze, my heart pounding. I'd known this moment was coming, but knowing didn't make it easier. "I know," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I've known since the ultrasound." His brow furrowed, a mix of confusion and realization. "Why didn't you say anything? All this time. You let me think." He trailed off, hurt flickering in his eyes. "I was scared," I admitted, tears welling up. "Scared you'd feel trapped. Scared you'd stay out of obligation. Not love. I wanted you to choose me, not just the baby." Lucas leaned back, processing. For a moment, I thought I'd lost him. But then he took my hand, his grip steady. "Ethan, I chose you the moment I saw those two lines. I chose you when I held Noah for the first time. I'm not here because I have to be. I'm here because I love you. Both of you." The words broke something in me, a dam of fear and doubt I'd built over months. I sobbed, and he pulled me into his arms. His warmth a promise I finally let myself believe. I love you too, I said, the words freeing and terrifying all at once. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. He kissed my forehead, his lips soft against my skin. We're a family now. No more secrets. Okay. No more secrets. It became our mantra, a vow to face the messiness of life together. We moved to a bigger apartment, a sunny place with room for Noah to grow. Lucas proposed on a rainy evening. Not with a ring, but with a drawing I'd made years ago, a sketch of us laughing at the rusty anchor. Back when we were just friends with unspoken dreams. I want every night to feel like that one, he said. And I said yes before he could finish. Life wasn't perfect. My parents never fully came around. Though they sent Noah a stuffed bear for his first birthday. The world still judged, with its whispers and stares. But we built a community, friends. Neighbors. A chosen family who loved us fiercely. Noah grew. His blue eyes a daily reminder of the night that changed everything. A night that wasn't a mistake, but a beginning. Years later, as I watched Lucas teach Noah to ride a bike in Golden Gate Park, I realized something. Love doesn't erase the choice, it thrives in it. It's the courage to choose each other. Day after day. Through the drunken nights and the sober mornings. Through the fears and the joys. Noah's laughter echoed across the grass. And Lucas looked back at me, his smile brighter than the sun. We were messy, imperfect, and undeniably whole. And that was enough.